Hello, 2BC. Welcome back to our series on spiritual practices. We are turning our attention once again to prayer. We last talked about prayer in June, and this month for October, we are going to be doing a practice called walking prayer. Now, prayer is our primary means of communicating with God. We communicate with God by praying like words. We communicate by intentionally sitting in his presence, and we also communicate by listening. So we think of a relationship with a friend, or like if I have my relationship with Aaron, I'm going to talk to him and he's going to listen. He's going to say things and I'm going to listen. And so this month we are going to practice walking prayer and continue to build on our foundation of prayer and our deepening our understanding of prayer and our ability to hear God's voice. So you might be asking, what is walking prayer? Well, put very simply, it is walking and praying. I mean, it is very self-explanatory to a degree, but it is different than prayer walking. So if you've done a prayer walk before, often I've done those on like a mission trip where you're going and praying for specific needs in a community or for an area or for a certain group of people. And it's focused on other people and their needs. But in walking prayer, the focus is on our relationship with God and hearing his voice and what he is saying to us and what we want to say to him. And the focus is on being in his presence. So I don't know about you, but for me, often hearing God is one of the more challenging things. I have no shortage of words to say to him, but often quieting my mind, my heart, and being able to listen to him can be a challenge. There are so many things that distract us. In walking prayer, the goal is to use the rhythmic nature of walking to engage our minds in that activity to the point where it fades into the background and allows our hearts to be open to what God has to say to us. It allows us to hear him more clearly and be able to maybe think more clearly about what God is saying and what we want to say to God. It is a very helpful practice from that standpoint. One of the ways that I have done it in the past is by using a prayer labyrinth. And if you've ever seen a prayer labyrinth, it allows you to walk on this predetermined path. And it's usually very serpentine and winding everywhere. But you're not having to worry about where you're going because you just are meandering on this path that is taking you straight to the center. And then you get to the center and you have a place to kind of pause and to think for a few minutes. And then you wander back out and it takes you back out. And you don't have to think about where you're going, but you can focus on God's presence with you as you're doing that. So walking prayer is similar to that. I can't give everybody a prayer labyrinth to go and do, although it would be really cool, but we can do walking prayer. So the way it works is this. You pick a path, just any path that is the simple. We're not going for strenuous exercise. We're not going for any particular distance or difficulty. We really want it to be something easy and something that you can follow without having to check, where am I? How much longer do I have? And not having to navigate in any way. And so the idea is that you would then begin your walk and you would walk to a halfway point. And then you would, your halfway point that you would pick ahead of time would be ideally somewhere where you can pause and reflect for a few minutes. So maybe a place to sit down and rest. Or maybe if you just want to stand somewhere, but you would have a predetermined halfway point where you can pause for a few minutes for further reflection and prayer. And then you would turn around and go back the way you came. Or if you had a loop, you could just keep going on your loop. So after you've picked your path and you've set aside maybe about 30 minutes of your week to practice this prayer practice, you begin. And you begin by praying a breath prayer, something like, Jesus, I desire to walk in your presence. And just like when we practice praying without ceasing, it's something that you would pray a couple of times, maybe 3, 4, 5 times in a row, slowly connecting it with your breathing deeply and allowing yourself to really settle into Jesus's presence with you, because he does promise to be with us always, and he is with us. And so that is one of the things I love about this practice, is it is practicing being in his presence and talking with him, just doing an everyday activity like walking. And so once you have prayed that prayer and you feel that you are ready, you begin your walk. And on the way out, so your outward journey, I would encourage you to talk to Jesus about how he's been present with you over the past week or so. What has he been doing in your midst? And just talk to him about that. And if at any point on your journey you begin to be distracted and you find your mind beginning to wander, just pause and pray the breath prayer again. Jesus, I desire to be in your presence. But don't fret about it. We all are trained for our brains to just kind of follow whatever rabbit trails, and there is great value in that. But it takes intentional effort to stay in that place of being in God's presence. And so don't be overly hard on yourself if you find that you get distracted. Just pause, pray the breath prayer, recalling your mind and your heart back to God's presence with you, and begin again. And so you're on your outward journey and you're thinking about how and praying about how Jesus has been present with you over the last week or so, what he's been doing in your midst. And then you get to your halfway point. When you get there, I want you to pause and for several minutes and just to pause and reflect and think on what it is that Jesus is doing in your midst on that particular day. Where is he at work? How is he with you specifically at that time? And then whenever you're ready, you can begin your journey out. And on the outward journey, I encourage you to, with every step, to let every step represent your heart being called into alignment with Jesus' way, and to pray about how Jesus is at work around you and how you can join him in his work, how he wants you to participate, and talk to him about that on your outward journey. And so each week of the month of October, I encourage you to set aside one little 30-minute time slot to practice this. Now, if walking is just something that is not your thing for any number of reasons, you can do other things. I do have, if you go over to the Developing Disciples blog on 2bc.org, you can download a finger labyrinth, and trace it with your finger. I have a link to do that. Now, besides a finger labyrinth, you could go on an easy jog if you like to run, but really an easy one, not strenuous, or ride a bike, or even a meandering drive, as long as you can not be stressed out by traffic and worried about those things. But there are plenty of ways that we can do the same practice without actually having to walk. But I do encourage you, if you are able, to try walking. Our weather is slightly cooler in Corpus right now, so maybe it will stay that way for the month of October, and you'll be able to enjoy a little bit of time outdoors. Regardless of how you choose to practice it, I hope that you will at least try. I've found great value in this spiritual practice for me personally. It is one of my favorites. But as we go throughout the month of October, may our lives be transformed as we walk in step with Jesus. Bye.